You've entered the archives of the forgotten. I'm Dr. Haunted. Tonight I'll show you what was never meant to be seen. Just remember, once you know the truth, you can't unsee it. I started jogging at midnight out of necessity. Working double shifts at the hospital left me with only late-night hours for exercise. The quiet, suburban streets of Millbrook seemed perfect. Well lit, safe, and empty. For 3 months, my routine was identical. Leave at 11:45 p.m, run the same 5-mile loop through residential neighborhoods, return home by 12:30 a.m. The consistency helped me maintain fitness despite my chaotic schedule. That's when I first saw him, a figure jogging about 50 yards ahead of me, matching my exact pace. He wore dark running gear and moved with the fluid motion of an experienced runner. At first, I was glad for the company. Even distant company felt safer than running completely alone, but something felt wrong. No matter how I varied my speed, he stayed exactly 50 yards ahead. When I sprinted, he sprinted. When I slowed to a walk, he walked. When I stopped completely, he stopped too. After a week of this synchronized running, I decided to change my route. Instead of turning left at Oak Street, I went straight. The figure ahead of me turned left anyway, disappearing around the corner. I felt relieved until I reached the next intersection. There he was again, 50 yards ahead, waiting at the crosswalk as if he'd always been on this route. My curiosity overcame my caution. I called out, "Hey, wait up!" The figure stopped but didn't turn around. I jogged closer, closing the distance to 30 yards, then 20. But as I approached, he seemed to become less solid, like a shadow gaining substance only when viewed from a distance. At 10 yards, I could see through him to the streetlight beyond. I stopped running and stared. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face I recognized from missing persons posters around the neighborhood. James Morrison, a local teacher who'd vanished 3 months ago during his regular evening jog. His mouth moved as if speaking, but no sound reached me. Then he pointed down the street and began running again, glancing back as if urging me to follow. Against every instinct, I followed. James led me off my usual route, into a section of town I'd never explored. The streets grew darker, the houses more spread out. After 20 minutes, we reached a wooded area at the edge of the development. James stopped at the tree line and pointed into the darkness. In the moonlight, I could see a narrow dirt path winding into the woods. He gestured urgently, then began to fade. "Wait," I called. "What are you trying to show me?" But he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of pine and something else. Something rotting. I should have called the police immediately. Instead, I returned the next night with a flashlight, following the path James had shown me. After a quarter mile, the trail opened into a small clearing. In the center was a shallow grave, partially hidden by fallen leaves. The smell was unmistakable. The police found James Morrison's body exactly where his spirit had led me. He'd been murdered during his regular jog and hastily buried in woods he'd probably never seen alive. The killer was caught within a week, a drifter who'd been targeting lone joggers in several counties. But James's appearances didn't stop after his body was found. Other late-night runners began reporting a figure who would appear when they were in danger. A woman named Lisa credited him with leading her away from a would-be attacker. A teenager said the ghostly runner had guided him home when he'd gotten lost after dark. The city installed a memorial bench along the jogging path where James used to run. The plaque reads, "James Morrison, beloved teacher and guardian of night runners." I still jog at midnight, and I still see him sometimes. He stays at his usual distance now, no longer trying to lead me anywhere. Just a watchful presence ensuring no other runner meets his fate. But sometimes, when the moon is dark and the streets feel dangerous, James moves closer. His translucent form becomes more solid, more protective. On those nights, I know someone else needs his help more than I do. The Millbrook night running community has grown since James's story spread. We all feel safer knowing our guardian is out there, 50 yards ahead, watching over those who choose to run when the world sleeps. James Morrison found his purpose in death, protecting others from the fate that claimed him. Some spirits move on to whatever comes next. Others stay exactly where they're needed most. The endorphin rush from long-distance running was my drug of choice. Nothing compared to that perfect runner's high, the moment when pain transforms into euphoria and you feel like you could run forever. I'd been chasing that feeling for years, gradually increasing my distances from 5Ks to marathons to ultramarathons. My personal record was 50 miles, but I was training for something bigger. The Riverside Trail was perfect for long runs, a 12-mile paved path following an old railway line through forests and farmland. Mile markers every quarter mile let me track my progress precisely. During my longest training run, something unprecedented happened at mile 23. The runner's high hit me harder than ever before. The pain in my legs vanished, my breathing became effortless, and I felt like I was floating above the pavement. But this high was different. Instead of euphoria, I felt disconnected. Like I was watching myself run from above, observing my body moving automatically while my consciousness drifted elsewhere. That's when I noticed I wasn't alone. Other runners appeared alongside me, dozens of them, all moving at exactly my pace. They wore gear from different eras, 1970s short shorts, 1980s tracksuits, modern compression wear, all running with the same vacant expression I'd seen in mirrors during my deepest runner's highs. None of them acknowledged my presence. They stared straight ahead with glassy eyes, their feet hitting the pavement in perfect synchronization. No heavy breathing, no signs of fatigue, just mechanical movement forward. I tried to slow down, but my legs wouldn't respond to my commands. My body continued running at the same steady pace, following some internal rhythm I couldn't control. Mile marker 24, mile marker 25. The phantom runners remained, their numbers growing with each mile. I began recognizing faces from missing persons reports I'd seen over the years. Runners who'd disappeared during training runs, their bodies never found. At mile 30, I realized the truth. This wasn't a runner's high. This was the runner's curse. The trail was collecting endurance athletes, trapping them in an eternal state of running bliss. Their bodies had been found eventually, collapsed from exhaustion in various locations, but their spirits remained here, forever chasing the perfect run. Mile 35. My phone was dead, my water bottles empty, but I felt no thirst or fatigue. The sun had set hours ago, but artificial streetlights illuminated the path with harsh white light that seemed to come from nowhere. The other runners began to acknowledge me, turning their heads with jerky, unnatural movements. Their mouths moved in unison, speaking without sound. Join us. Run forever. Never stop. Never rest. I fought against my body's automation, concentrating every ounce of willpower on breaking the rhythm. At mile 40, I managed to stumble, falling hard onto the asphalt. The phantom runners continued past me, their synchronized footsteps fading into the distance. Pain flooded back, cramping muscles, dehydration, bloody scrapes from my fall. But pain meant I was still human, still connected to my physical form. I crawled to the nearest mile marker, 7.5 miles. According to my GPS watch, I'd been running for 11 hours and covered 47 miles. But the mile markers told a different story. I'd somehow been running in a 7-mile loop for nearly half a day. Search and rescue found me at dawn, delirious and severely dehydrated. I'd been reported missing by my wife when I failed to return from what should have been a 4-hour training run. The medical team called it exercise-induced hallucinations brought on by extreme dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. They couldn't explain why my GPS showed impossible distances or why I'd been running in circles for hours, but I researched the Riverside Trail afterward. Over the past decade, 12 experienced runners had been found collapsed along the path after disappearing during long training runs. All showed signs of extreme exertion far beyond their known capabilities. All reported seeing other runners just before losing consciousness. The trail remains popular with the running community. Most complete their runs without incident, but ultramarathoners whisper warnings about chasing the perfect high, about pushing too far into that transcendent state where mind separates from body. Sometimes, on foggy mornings, cyclists report seeing groups of runners moving in perfect formation along the trail. They never respond to greetings, never vary their pace, never stop. They're still chasing something none of them will ever catch, the finish line of a race that has no end. My morning routine was sacred. 5:30 a.m. alarm, coffee, stretch, then a precise 6-mile loop through Oakwood Park before work. Same route, same pace, same time every day for 3 years. Consistency was my religion, and dawn jogging was my meditation. The park was usually empty at sunrise except for occasional dog walkers and fellow early bird runners. I preferred it that way. Solitude helped me center myself for the day ahead. That changed on a Tuesday in October when I encountered the woman in the vintage tracksuit. She was stretching against an oak tree near the main entrance, wearing a powder blue tracksuit that looked straight from the 1980s. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a scrunchie, and she had the lean build of a dedicated runner. "Beautiful morning," she said with a warm smile as I passed. "Perfect for running," I agreed, continuing my warm-up routine. When I started my loop, she fell into step beside me. Her pace matched mine perfectly, and she ran with the efficient form of someone who'd been doing this for decades. "I love this park," she said between steady breaths. "Been running here every morning for years. You develop such a connection to a place when you see it change through the seasons." We ran together comfortably, talking about running philosophy and the meditative aspects of dawn exercise. She mentioned local races from the 1980s and 90s, reminiscing about the golden age of recreational running. As we completed the first mile, something felt off about her stories. She spoke about past events with the immediacy of recent memories, describing running partners and local running stores that had closed decades ago as if they still existed. "What's your name?" I asked. "Margaret," she replied. "Margaret Chen. Been running this loop since 1987. The name was familiar, but I couldn't place it. We finished the run together, and Margaret waved goodbye at the same oak tree where I'd found her stretching. "See you tomorrow morning," she called out. Same time, same place. True to her word, Margaret was there the next morning, stretching in the same spot, wearing the same tracksuit. We ran together again, and she told me more stories about the park's history and the running community that had flourished here in the 1980s. But her stories began to repeat. Word for word, identical conversations about races that had happened last year, in 1989. She mentioned meeting her husband at a 10K that had been discontinued before I was born. I researched Margaret Chen when I got home. The local running club website had a memorial page dedicated to her. Margaret had been a beloved member of the Oakwood Park running community until her death in 1992. She'd collapsed during her morning run and was found hours later by other joggers, having died of a heart attack at age 34. The next morning, I waited at her usual spot. Margaret appeared exactly at 6 a.m., beginning her stretching routine as if materializing from the morning mist. "Margaret," I said carefully, "what year is it?" She looked confused. 1991, of course. Why do you ask?" "Margaret, you died in 1992. It's been over 30 years. Her face went blank, then filled with quiet sadness. "That can't be right. I run here every morning, I have goals to achieve, races to train for. I'm planning to qualify for Boston next year. I showed her photos on my phone, the memorial plaque installed in her honor, obituaries from 1992, the running club's tribute page. She stared at the images with growing recognition. I remember feeling dizzy, she whispered, pain in my chest. I thought I just needed to rest for a moment. Margaret looked around the park, as if seeing it for the first time in decades. How long have I been running this same loop? Every morning for 30 years, I think. Other runners have mentioned seeing you, but most assumed you were just another early jogger. She nodded slowly. I couldn't let go. This routine was everything to me. The discipline, the consistency, the peace I found here. Death couldn't break a habit that strong. Margaret ran with me one final time that morning, sharing real memories instead of repeated loops. She told me about her dreams of running Boston, her love of dawn solitude, her belief that daily running was a form of prayer. As we completed the loop, Margaret stopped at her oak tree. I think I'm ready now, she said. Thank you for helping me remember. She faded gradually, like morning mist touched by sunlight, until only the echo of her final words remained. Keep running. Find your peace. I still run the same loop every morning, but now I understand why some routines become eternal. Margaret's dedication was so pure, so complete, that death couldn't interrupt it. She ran for 30 years after her heart stopped, maintaining the discipline that had defined her life. The oak tree where she used to stretch now has a small plaque. Margaret Chen Memorial Grove, for runners who find peace in the dawn. Sometimes other early joggers stopped there to stretch, unknowingly continuing a tradition that began with a woman whose morning routine transcended mortality itself. The Lincoln Avenue running path was perfect for speed training, a straight, flat 2-mile stretch with minimal traffic and good lighting. I'd been using it for interval training, pushing my pace to qualify for the upcoming city marathon. My goal was breaking a 7-minute mile average, which required disciplined pacing and consistent practice. I used a GPS watch and running app to track every split, obsessing over shaving seconds off my time. That's when the black sedan started following me. At first, I thought it was coincidental. A dark car traveling slowly in the right lane while I ran on the sidewalk beside it. The driver maintained exactly the right speed to keep pace with my 7-minute mile target, never pulling ahead or falling behind. After a week of seeing the same car during every training run, I became curious about the driver. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside, but the license plate was clearly visible. PCE-CAR. Pace car. How perfect for someone interested in running speeds. The car never stopped or made any acknowledgement of my presence. It simply maintained that steady 8.5 miles per hour pace that matched my target speed exactly. Having a pace car felt like having a personal coach, helping me maintain consistency over long intervals. I began timing my training runs to coincide with the car's schedule. It appeared every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m, following the same route I ran. We developed a strange partnership, the mysterious driver and the ambitious runner, working together toward my goal. My times improved dramatically. Having a visual reference for perfect pacing eliminated the guesswork from my training. I stopped checking my watch constantly, instead focusing on staying aligned with my mechanical pace car. But something nagged at me about the arrangement. The car never varied its speed for traffic conditions, never stopped for red lights or pedestrians. It moved with mechanical precision that seemed almost supernatural. One evening, I decided to test the car's limits. Instead of maintaining my usual pace, I sprinted ahead as fast as I could. The sedan immediately accelerated, somehow keeping perfect alignment with my position, despite traffic laws and safety concerns. When I stopped abruptly to tie my shoe, the car stopped in the middle of the street. Traffic backed up behind it, horns honking, but the driver never responded to the chaos they'd created. That's when I realized the truth. The car wasn't following me. I was following it. I researched the license plate online and found something chilling. PCECAR had been registered to David Walsh, a competitive runner who'd been training for the Boston Marathon in 2018. David had been struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver during a training run on Lincoln Avenue. The black sedan matching the description of David's pace car had been found abandoned 3 days after the accident. The driver was never identified, but investigators believed the same person had been stalking David for weeks before the fatal collision. But the investigation reports included witness statements that made no sense. Multiple people reported seeing David's black sedan still driving Lincoln Avenue after his death, still maintaining the same consistent speed, still following the same route he'd used for training. I realized I'd been running alongside a ghost car, driven by the spirit of someone who'd died chasing the same goal I was pursuing. David's dedication to his training had been so intense that death couldn't stop him from completing his daily runs. The next time I saw the pace car, I ran to the driver's side window and knocked on the glass. The tinted window rolled down slowly, revealing an empty driver's seat. The steering wheel turned by invisible hands, the accelerator pressed by phantom feet. "David!" I called into the emptiness. "Is that you?" The radio crackled to life, cycling through static until a voice emerged. "Perfect pace, stay consistent, never give up." I understood then that David was still coaching, still helping runners achieve their goals even after his own dreams had been cut short. The pace car wasn't haunting Lincoln Avenue, it was serving it, providing guidance to anyone dedicated enough to notice. My marathon training continued with David's ghostly assistance. I qualified for Boston with a time that would have made him proud. At the starting line, I wore a small pin with David's race number from 2018, carrying his unfulfilled dream across the finish line he'd never reached. The pace car still appears on Lincoln Avenue, helping dedicated runners maintain their target speeds. Some athletes report feeling an invisible presence, encouraging them during difficult intervals, a whispered voice urging them to push harder when they want to quit. David Walsh found a way to complete his mission after death, not by running the race himself, but by helping others achieve what he never could. Some coaches retire when their careers end. Others become eternal, guiding new generations toward goals that transcend the boundaries between life and death. The black sedan with license plate PCE-CAR continues its rounds, proof that true dedication never dies, it just finds new ways to serve. That concludes tonight's case. But the shadows don't sleep. I'm Dr. Haunted. Until next time, keep your doors locked, your lights low, and your nightmares closer.